So number one is you've got to build trust. That's the number one thing. And you know this, Harry, in the selling with dignity concept is nobody's going to buy something from someone they don't trust unless they have no other option and it's a requirement for life, right?
Are you looking to improve your sales without resorting to pushy tactics? Welcome to Sales Made Easy, the podcast that helps you to achieve better sales results and gain long-lasting clients through relational selling. Let's get right into it. What is the good word? I hope you're having an outstanding day. Thank you for listening to the Sales Made Easy podcast. Today, you're in for another treat. With me is Tim Berry, who is an executive and he coaches through the Sandler training process and methodology. He is a great sales mind, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So, Tim, welcome to the Sales Made Easy podcast. What's the good word?
Harry, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be part of your podcast. I know you have these world beaters on and always imparting wonderful wisdom for your audience. So thank you very much.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you, Tim. I really love your approach to sales. We both have a lot of commonality. And without too much of a love affair, I wanted to get into this topic today about closing business. This is one where I hear people over and over again when we talk about ethical or dignified selling. Some feel they need to be pushy to get the business. And they say things like, well, all of that sounds really nice, Harry, but I could never be that way. I really have to close hard. So what comes to mind for me is pressure, manipulation, stress, all kinds of things that are not harmonious with relationship selling. So is this something you see out there, Tim, or have you come across it all?
The things that I see are this. Your whole concept is selling with dignity. And I think that when I ask sales trainees, what's the first word that comes to mind when you think of a salesperson? They almost always say things like manipulation, pushy, rude, in it for themselves, stuff like that. And that's because we've all been victim of a salesperson who's done that exactly to us. And so I think the concept that we promote, that I teach my clients is this, is the very first thing and the most important part of sales is that you've got to be able to build trust with your prospects. And this is part of the selling with dignity piece, right? I think that we as professional salespeople have an ethical duty, a fiduciary duty, if you will, to do no harm, almost like doctors with the Hippocratic Oath. I think that we have to look out for our prospects. And so the idea of ethical selling is two things. One, it's selling something to someone that they both want and need, but it's also not selling something to someone that they don't want or need. And that takes some real moxie and it takes some character for a salesperson to say, you know what, there isn't really a fit. So I guess when I hear people are like, yeah, I need to have a big closing move. I need to be more aggressive in closing business. I wonder about the character of those types of people, not in a too judgy way, but it's like they're reinforcing that negative stereotype, don't you think?
Oh, 100%. No offense to those who are selling cars out there, but I talked to a person who is highly involved in car sales, and I asked about this line, what do I have to do to get you in this car today? The person said, well, their argument was there is nothing better than that line because it will expose whatever the person is thinking and what you need to do to get them in the sale. And I'm like, yeah, unless they don't trust you, they're not going to tell you what's really on their mind, right? So other than that, if it was that easy, everyone would be buying a car on the first call. So I'm in complete agreement with you on this. And the thing is, like, I remember someone asked me about closing, and I'm like, I don't even know what a closing line is. The first deal that I got of significance, the person says, "What do we need to do to get this?" And I'm like, so I didn't, from that point on, I realized that it wasn't about me. So getting back into this, it's really what I'm seeing is that people in general, sellers who are maybe small business owner or inexperienced salespeople, will have, and some experienced as well, will have a conversation with a person, detect interest, and then go into all of the speeds and all the great things about their products, and then ask for the business. And that is where people start hesitating and they think, well, maybe my close isn't strong enough. But speaking with you, you have somewhat of a different approach. Before you talk so much about yourself, what is it that you're doing in the conversation where someone is showing interest?
I remember when I was young and I was listening to a cassette tape in my car, and it was Zig Ziglar.
Yeah.
And Zig Ziglar said something. I was maybe 19 years old listening to the Zig Ziglar tape, which was bananas at the time. But what he said was, selling ain't telling, ask us.
Yeah.
Selling ain't telling, ask us. And I remember that quote like it was yesterday. And so for me, the Sandler ideology, the Sandler technique and process is beautiful because it's an intellectual thing, right? There's 7 steps to it. Real quick, it's body rapport, up for a contract, pay budget decision, present, and then post-close. And I can teach that, but what it really comes down to is that it's applied artfully, conversationally. And so closing is interesting because if you think of the 7 steps that I just talked about, actual presenting is the 6th of 7 steps. What the rest of the process involves is gathering information by asking great questions. So number 1 is you've got to build trust. That's the number 1 thing. And you know this, Harry, in the selling with dignity concept is nobody's going to buy something from someone they don't trust unless they have no other option and it's a requirement for life, right? So trust is the most important thing. The next important thing for the salesperson is to gain equal business stature so they don't sell subserviently to the prospect. If you're selling at a disadvantage, if you have the prospect up on a pedestal, then you're not going to ask the right questions. And then what happens is the salesperson is going to start pitching immediately once they find even a smidgen of a morsel to chew on. And so building trust, gaining equal business stature, and then asking amazing deep questions and not pitching, suspending that need to vomit information and try to dazzle the prospect is key. Because what you're really doing from a conceptual point of view, if you zoom out, the salesperson is helping them discover that there's a reason to make a change or not. And either way, it's fine. So by the time you get through a great paying conversation to figure out if there's a compelling reason to do business, and you've had a deep conversation about budget and investment, and you fully understand the buying decision-making process, then you can present to what they just told you. So now it's almost like you custom built a solution. And so for me, my big closing move is not like some crazy Law and Order gotcha moments in the courtroom where, Vincent D'Onofrio is talking with his head sideways, gotcha moments. Really the big closing move that we use is the question, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
And it surrenders control of what they want to do. It's either going to be no, or not going to do business, or it could be, let's sign a contract and send me that invoice right now. The third thing is, well, we need some more information or there's more people that need to have a hand in this thing. But there's only 3 actual decisions that need to be made at the end. And so I don't know if that makes sense, but it's very confrontational. It's like, hey, where do you think we should vote after we just discussed everything that we could about your the problem, where it came from, how much it's costing you, and what the impact is to you specifically. And we developed a solution that fits your time frame, and then let me understand that your decision making process. Where do we go from here? The prospect gets to actually choose, and it's a beautiful, non-confrontational, and artful way of closing.
I'm a big fan of James Muir and the book, The Perfect Close. Looks like you're nodding your head. So,
Yep.
but yeah, it's very similar because you're giving the person, they're the ones that are going to dictate to you as to how this deal is going to progress or not. The only pressure is you have to get familiar with this question, right? Once you have the question down and you're asking the person, well, where do we go from here? Or in his book, he talks about at this point, many choose to go and maybe they want to look at references, or maybe another aspect is they want to get other people involved. What is it you would like to do? And so they're going to give an answer. And if they say, I don't know, then you have choices. But if they say, well, we're not ready for this, that's okay, because there is zero pressure. And then but the other thing that David Meltzer talks about is approaching each sale with gratitude. Let's just say gratitude is the key, is that you're not needy. And I remember another great sales master, Brian Tracy, said, act like you want the sale, but not need the sale. So all of these people are talking about approaching the close very calmly. It's nothing to get stressed about. And so with your approach, it sounds to me like the sale is slowed down. So if someone says, look, I really want some training here for my sales team, we're ready to go. Why don't you send me a proposal? My guess is they're not getting a proposal right away. Okay. So whereas others might fall into that trap and just give the buyer what they're asking for, what is it that you would do?
Well, I mean, think about this, Harry. Somebody comes to me and says, we need sales training. Why don't you send me a proposal? The first pop into my mind is like, hold on. Why do you think you need sales training? That's a very unusual thing in the first place, right? Nobody in the history of the world ever got to talk to a sales trainer, not even once. And so that's an unusual question. So I would, among the other things I'd be asking her is, hold on. I'd love to help you in theory, but like, how many people do you need sales training for? What do they need sales training in? What kind of sale do you have? Is it B2B, B2C? Is it a commodity? Is it a enterprise sale? There's 1,000 questions that have to be answered. And so I consider all sales calls discovery calls. It's almost like in the movie The Matrix, there's a famous scene with Neo on top of the building, and one of the agents traps him on top of the building and shoots 6 bullets at him. And there's a famous scene where he's falling back and he blows the bullets down, right?
Yeah.
And that's how I think sales people need to be. They have to be like Neo in the Matrix and slow the bullets down, because it sounds great. They're trying, the game that the salesperson is playing is oftentimes the prospect's game. They have a defense mechanism, and the defense mechanism for the prospect consists of 4 things. The first one is that they're going to feign interest in what the salesperson has to sell. The second step is that the prospect is going to steal all the information that they could, including the price, about the salesperson's wares. The third part is that they're going to avoid being closed. And the fourth part is they're going to ghost the salesperson. That's the 4-step process and defense mechanism that the prospect has. Being curious, and I think the word you were thinking of was abundance. When you have a mindset of abundance, you're not emotionally tied to the decision either way. If they say no, okay, then you can go talk to other people that can tell you yes. If they tell you yes, that's great. Not being emotionally tied up will allow you to slow things down. And that's exactly what we're talking about at Sandler. Be Neo on top of the building where the bullets fly and slow those things down. Because the prospect is trying to speed you up and get you to default into that blabbering on about how great you and your product and your service and your company and your industry is, when in reality, the prospect doesn't care about any of those things. They care about what they care about.
Right.
And so that takes some skill and some art form. So that's what I teach.
Yeah, really good. So in this process of slowing the sale down, is there a time frame where you say, I know this is pretty open based on different types of businesses, but when you're going in and you're quote unquote selling yourself, but you're really asking questions, you're learning about the person, you're finding out if there's a need, eventually you're asking about budget. I'm assuming you're not leading with the budget question. Some people do that because they want to get through people really quickly. If they don't have budget, it's like, well, I'm out of here mentally. But eventually they may have the budget, right? So you build rapport and so forth. You have kind of like, not holding you to this, but like the time involved in building this trust on the first call?
It depends on the temperament of the person that you're talking to. If you're talking to someone who is a historical butterfly and bouncing off a wall, they may be, and so extroverted, you may be able to connect with that person super quick. Now, what we know is that there are a lot of people who are risk averse and they don't like confrontation and they don't like being feel manipulated or even feeling that way.
Right.
And so their temperament requires that you really, really slow down. And then there's others that are data driven. And so they may have to slow down because they need to understand the ROI and the investments, and they may need tons of data. So you really have to be an expert in reading other people. You have to have a good emotional IQ for yourself. And then you have to be able to pay attention to and read the signals that your buyer is giving you before you proceed. And so that's why, bonding rapport and building trust is the most important thing. You can do it in a one call close 100%. You just have to let the game come to you. You can't just be on the assault. If you're a temperament and you're talking to a light, you're going to steamroll them and you'll never have trust. So you've got to have the emotional intelligence, the EQ, if you will, to get there.
So there is no quick close, right? It's not about the things that we say. It's about the trust that leads up to asking for the business. And I think this is where the huge opportunity is for many, is to build that trust along the process. And like you mentioned, with emotional intelligence, we'll be able to discern how much time we're spending with and what we're doing with different types of individuals. Do I have that right?
Yeah, I'll give you an example. Over the weekend, we ended up at a farmer's market of some sort, and there were 3 vendors that were peddling fresh Texas honey. I went to all 3 of them. I did a little sample spoon of all 3 of them, and they all tasted wonderful. I bought from the one who was the least salesy because they made me trust them. And so I spent $14 on a little thing of honey. In the end, it wasn't even on a commodity level product like honey, you would think is maybe commodity. I still bought from the person that I trusted, not from the other 2 who I did not. Trust means everything, even in transactional sales.
Well, Tim, I know we're short and sweet here today. Where can people find you if they want to hear more about your insights on sales and maybe hire you for some sales training?
Sure. You can email me at tim.berry, Barry, at sandler.com. You can find me on LinkedIn at Tim Berry Executive Coach, or you can find me on Instagram at Sandler Fort Worth. I do regular videos each week, and several times a week, do little 2-minute reels on some sales tips. So that's how you can get a hold of me.
Nice. I love it, Tim. Thank you. You have a great rest of the day. I appreciate what you're doing to help others to be better in sales without the pushy sliminess. So good for you.
Thanks, Harry. It's a blessing. I appreciate you.
Thanks for listening to Sales Made Easy. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe and share it with your friends. Also, you're invited to join the Facebook group Sales Training Selling with Dignity. Serve first, the selling will follow.